Okay, since some of you asked, here's what I'm running as far as my setup here. So the use case or the item which we wanted to talk about was some people like to play those stupid ass Facebook games, and as part of that, it asks for authentication tokens. It does a whole lot of really nasty things. Basically, anytime you do that, you're basically just opening up your digital footprint, your digital life to everybody, so they can get all kinds of really cool information about you, where you live, what kind of browser you're using, what operating system you're using, etc., etc. So you can take pieces of that and immediately use it, or if you really wanted to do something diabolical, like get into somebody's bank account or something, well, then you can go and you can connect that up with some other information that you could search off of dark websites. You could buy off of dark websites. Now, I'm not going to show you anything having to do with the dark web or going down that path. I'm ethical in everything that I'm doing here. Everything that I'm doing is standard procedure for the white hat, the good version of security professionals. So let me show you a couple of things, and there's a couple different ways that I do this, but let's talk first about virtual environments. So no matter what kind of operating system that I'm running, I tend to run a virtual environment on top of it. What that allows me to do is basically run a computer inside of a computer. You're running an operating system inside of another computer. And if you'd like more information about how operating systems, virtual environments, there's tons of stuff out there on the internet to show you that. But one of the couple of the things that I use is I use something called Whonix. I also use something called Kali Linux, and I also use Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is a very popular Linux distribution. Kali Linux is more one tailored towards security professionals, and Hunix is one also for security professionals. It's used more on the user side. So basically, Hunix I'm using for as the user piece of it. But if I'm actually doing like penetration testing or intrusion detection on my websites, any of the things that I'm maintaining, that's where I kind of swap in Kali Linux for that. But you could do this with Kali Linux just as well. So in this current configuration I'm going to run you through, Hunix is being used as a gateway. So all traffic coming in to my machine is going through Hunix. And then from Hunix, it's then turning around and popping off to one of these other environments. So I've actually got two levels of protection built in there. At any time, if somebody gets in, they're actually getting into that virtual machine. They're not getting into my base machine where this is running. And I can take these images and I can drop these images off. I can lock people inside of these images. I can delete the image, refresh the image with a fresh image if something gets compromised inside of it. So it's very secure. And that's really the concept of containerization. And so as it comes in from the outside world, it goes through that gateway, and then it goes into either the workstation, the Unix workstation, where I can consume it. That's where I can use my web browser. Or it can go into other things such as Kali Linux. It can go into a Windows container. It can go into a lot of things from that point. So basically, when this is running, this is a Oracle VirtualBox is what I'm running right here. And again, that's pretty standard. When this is running, it's basically running a very small copy of Unix, the gateway software. So this is a Linux distribution all in itself. So I've got things here that I could take a look at. But really, for your gateway, you don't want to have any things that you do out there on that gateway. Treat that just like you treat your internal firewall on your network. And again, I won't go into the details of the hardwire system that I've got set up, as well as what Wi-Fi that I have set up. I disabled any kind of guest access. There's some pretty heavy-duty firewall pieces that are in place too, as well, kind of protecting my internal network. Now, my NAS that's on an internal intranet, and that's completely isolated from the outside world too. So the most important things in my life, the digital files such as my pictures, my financial records, etc. That's all on an isolated system. And you basically have to go through one gateway to get to that. You cannot get to that from the outside world. So my system again is pretty containerized. It's pretty secure when you look at it in the whole. But let's say I'm coming in from the outside. The first thing that's running out here is this Hunix Gateway. It's got firewall built into it. It's got some really nice things built into it as well. So you can see it's already running Tor, which is what helps anonymize my presence out there. It protects people from, kind of getting into my machine or understanding more about what machine I'm running, as well as I'm moving around to different websites and stuff. They're unable to really track me as a result of this. So that's the first piece of it. You come in through the gateway. Then after you get into the gateway, here's a copy of the workstation running. And so workstation, again, it's just basically a Linux distribution. I'm running just a web browser inside of it. And here's an interesting site that I use just to verify that this is working. So it's called DNSLeakTest.com. So if you run DNS Leak Test, right now if I run this, it's saying that this one is in the Netherlands. And so it'll go through several different hops. And again, by looking here, I can see that yes, this connection is secure. So I know that my connection's secure. Everything is good as far as that goes. And then what I do is I basically go into Facebook. Now, Facebook, as you first pull it up, it'll be whatever country you're currently in. So in this case, it's in the Netherlands right now. Originally, this was in Mexico, and so it's bouncing. And so the information is in Spanish, but that's obviously something that you can also change whenever the Facebook actually runs. It'll pop up. It'll have a little box that'll pop up that'll allow you to change that. So this is I speak enough Spanish that I could run a Facebook with a Spanish Facebook, and I could be just fine with that too. Now, I have separate accounts. So I have an account that I use for social media, just for things like where I'll post this. But then there's also some other things out there. So if I wanted to play one of these ridiculous games, I would basically use one of my fake accounts. I'd log into it, and then from within it, it's storing the tokens. It's storing the individual things here on this isolated area. The other thing I'll say is I don't share any pictures back to any of my fake accounts in Facebook. I don't share any personal information. As far as they know, in this case, I'm somebody in Mexico, and I use fake pictures, etc., like that, just to kind of mask my identity whenever I'm out there on Facebook. Probably violates their terms of service, but that again is what I do to make sure that my Facebook is isolated. Kali Linux, I use that primarily for doing my pen testing, for doing the intrusion detection, etc. Again, it has the same type of thing. Here is DNS leak test in the run, and you can run the standard test. If I'm running the standard test, it's already telling me right there that it's secured connection. Give it a second, and you see this one here. It's saying it's not coming from the United States, so that's good. Primarily, I use the Tor browser in order to do this. The Tor browser will again bounce off of several different hosts out there on the internet before it hits on the final endpoint, and then go into whatever you're going to do. In this case, I'm just going to go right into Facebook right here. This does have a whole nother set of things that you can do. This is where I do my scans against my servers. I look for vulnerabilities. I may have to do things of passwords, but that's again just for my own personal passwords. If I forget the password and I miss it, then I could go back and go through it. And for obvious reasons, none of this stuff I'm going to post any videos to show you how to do any of these things. There's plenty of videos out there to show you, but I don't want to take on any kind of responsibility for somebody using Kali Linux inappropriately. So that's just kind of how my setup works, just to give you a quick little 5 minutes on it here. If you have any questions, please just post. Thanks.